There's a sports film festival happening in Newport, and I'll tell you, this primary has become sport too, hasn't it?
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
How are you? It's good to have you in. It has been a weekend of sorts, no doubt, but you know, sometimes you just got to relax from this political stuff, and we will peek into the first ever sports film festival happening in Newport, coming up here actually at the end of this week, into the weekend. So where did April go? I'm looking at these dates saying, oh, it's not till April 29th. No, that's this week. Some months just seem to fly by. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Hope you did well this weekend. Did you go see any of the candidates of your choice? Let's go to the rundown and talk about it, because there was lots of that going on. Oh my goodness, the world stopped today. Donald Trump came to Rhode Island. The New York Times talks about Rhode Island being a really, really important place, no doubt. And then Trump comes into Rhode Island, and all the world has changed here. The people, they ran to the Crown Plaza. They couldn't get there fast enough. It was a pretty quick decision, right, Donald?
Thank you very much, everybody. What an honor. You know, we set this thing up like 12 hours ago.
Well, thanks for stopping by anyway. And he said his friends, more or less, made it happen.
Thank you. Thank you, Rhode Island. Thank you. Hey, now I'm glad I came up to Rhode Island, right? You know? Let me just tell you. So I have friends in Rhode Island. So they were calling me, though. They were saying, when are you coming up? Well, I don't know. I guess, you know, I have schedulers. They call it up.
Yeah, well, you know, again, if you were looking for more substance in this speech, maybe about 40 minutes in, I made the decision to run the entire speech on the radio, weekdays noon to 3 on WPRO. By the way, program note, we'll be telling you more about this later in the week, but as of next week, it'll be weekdays 3 to 6. So if you're scoring at home, write that down. Anyway, the people couldn't get in. There was 800 folks who were let in under the tent. It was a last-minute decision. The Crown Plaza did what they could to get a big crowd in there, probably the biggest crowd they've ever had for an event. It's a pretty substantial facility, but there were thousands, I guess, who showed up and who were very disappointed, some of whom already online had reserved their tickets. And so they're calling my radio program saying, Dan, I can't get in. Lex, do you think I was crying for them? No. First of all, wrong guy, because I'm not a Donald Trump guy, so I'm just going to laugh. And secondly, what are you calling the chubby guy on the radio for? It's just kind of, it was almost surreal. I'm thinking, are these the typical Trumpettes out there that would call the guy on the radio with the ticket in their hand that they got from the campaign? I don't know. You guys are killing me. But Trump, I will tell you, if you haven't seen it, try to find it long form somewhere, because he was in rare form. The old Donald Trump was here today. And then I thought about it. The old Donald Trump, well, there was like one night, the night of the New York primary, when he actually referred to Ted Cruz as Senator Cruz and actually started to look presidential, and all of these consultants are on him like a cheap suit trying to convince him that he's got to be more presidential. And it seems like he's almost internally fighting them, saying, I'm not going to do that. It's crazy, but he was laying the lumber on Kasich and Cruz and anybody that got in his way, and there were a couple of protesters, and he was on them, and the crowd was eating it up. Boy, he's red meat for them, but or maybe you. We'll talk more about it on the radio tomorrow at noontime this week. In the meantime, the other two guys in the race are thinking, I don't know, we are going to have to get together. And this is kind of a flimsy type of thing going on. First, let me play this audio that we generated kind of quickly. The two guests that you're going to hear that were on my radio program, you've seen them both here, by the way. They're the chairpersons of the Cruz and Kasich campaign, respectively. They were on with me on the radio today at 2 o'clock. And Gio Ciccione, the former chairman of the state Republican Party, talked about Ted Cruz as the only alternative.
You know, in the end, this is about beating Hillary Clinton, who's going to be the Democratic nominee, despite their love for Bernie Sanders. You know, she'll I think, take that nomination. If we want to beat her, we need a candidate who's going to get more than 30% of the vote, and that's not going to be Donald Trump. It's got to be an alternative, and of course we think we have the alternative with Ted Cruz.
And the Ted Cruz campaign is trying to get their 10%. If they get 10% of the primary vote tomorrow, then they qualify for the delegates earned here in Rhode Island, which is a prorated situation. There are 19 delegates, and they're broken up by 3 party officials, and then 3 in each of the 2 congressional districts, and then 10 across the board, if you follow that. And so it's all prorated. So if he gets 10%, he gets a proportional share of those delegates. And these days, every delegate counts. Of course, delegates aren't really a big concern on the national scene for John Kasich. Dawson Hodgson is his state chairman.
It's a little bit overblown, and it's playing into the type of rhetoric Mr. Trump likes to use about some type of rigged process. But, you know, tell Abraham Lincoln about a rigged convention. You know, tell Dwight Eisenhower. We remember the leaders that lead this country and that win. You know, there's one thing that he should understand. He knows the rules, and if he can achieve a majority, he'll get to be the nominee of the Republican Party. I do believe he's going to go down in flames in a general election and lose to Hillary Clinton pretty badly.
So Kasich was in town on Saturday at Bryant University, and when you hear this next little ditty, you'll see some of the scenes from that Bryant University affair. It was pretty impressive, I thought, and Kasich is wholly more impressive in person than he is on television. He asked, he was asked questions like, well, if you're the third place guy, why should I invest in you, and what kind of shot do you actually have to be in this thing, and all of that. And while I was watching this event at Bryant that I attended, I kept thinking, you know, maybe there's something he knows about the convention process that will turn in his direction. And so afterwards, when the media met with him, I asked.
Governor, what do you know about what's going to happen at the convention that we don't know?
Nothing. I mean, you probably have a lot of misinformation. I mean, the press doesn't really know. They repeat things where they don't really have much knowledge, but it's a great job because you get paid whether you're right or wrong. I mean, it's pretty cool. That's the way it works.
But the question goes to your confidence about staying in the process and what you project the convention will actually bring and how the whole thing is going to roll out.
I think there's going to be a convention. I think nobody will have enough delegates to claim the nomination. I think we'll go to a multi-ballot convention, just plain and simple. And I think at a multi-ballot convention, they're unlikely to pick somebody who can't beat Hillary Clinton.
A little bit of a poke at the media there. I enjoyed the poke. I got his point. Now, 24 hours later, we hear that Kasich and Cruz are forming some holy alliance, and here's the headline on that. But I'd be careful on this one. Both chairs of the respective Cruz and Kasich groups there that you just heard were trying to explain to me that this is really not a please go out and vote for the other guy's scheme. It's just a question of resources that are going to be dropped here and there. I mean, they're still fighting each other. So Indiana's the big test for this new alliance, and that comes up next week, where Kasich is kind of dropping his sword and letting Cruz win, but I'm not so sure he's going to be as aggressive to say, please vote for Cruz. It's kind of confusing. We'll see. All righty. By the way, all of this Republican stuff gets in the way of the Democratic stuff, and here's the front page, the headlines. You know, Clinton and Trump lead, and here's some data that comes out from the polling data for, this is the polling data, correct? This is polling data here in Rhode Island. You know, it depends on which poll you look at, but that's kind of the way the whole thing rolls out. Bernie set a new world record for a crowd at Roger Williams Park.
I would hope that Rhode Island adds its name to the previous other 16 states and saying we are going to go forward with a political revolution. Thank you all very much.
Oh, well, thank you. And Hillary knows all about us here.
I love this little state. I have so many friends here. I know how resilient and hardworking the people in this state are.
There's a new outside poll on Rhode Island that says that Bernie Sanders could win this thing tomorrow, which could, you know, give him a little kick in the pants and, you know, have him keep going. Remember what Noel Rubinton, our freelance journalist, said last week. He still thinks that Bernie could consider an independent run, which would throw this whole thing into a whole crazy place. In the meantime, just wanted to make a note of this because it's important. Headline, yeah, this is what the president had to say about it.
Approved the deployment of up to 250 additional U.S. personnel in Syria, including special forces, to keep up this momentum.
This is the fight against ISIS, of course, and you know, in a non-campaign year, this stuff would be big news. Our soldiers going to war, our soldiers running special operations and putting themselves in harm's way should never be backseat news, but on this cycle it is, and I just thought I would mention it to you. Keep your prayers going for the effort there. And of course, only in New England would this story actually bump up against the primary action that we have here. Believe me, in Massachusetts, this is the top story. And our director, Kevin, is throwing things behind the monitor. Jess is directing, Kevin's supporting today. And he couldn't direct today because he was so upset about this. Right? Okay. You know, the appeals court takes some time, and they certainly took their time with this situation here. I don't know what this means, but could you imagine an appeal by the Players Union and the Patriots and Tom Brady on this? Could you imagine a deflated football story appearing at the United States Supreme Court? It's more about process than it is about the actual meat of the story. I get that, but I don't know. I'm just trying to see Supreme Court justices putting pins in footballs, trying to, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to fly with me. Anyway, speaking of sports, there's some pretty cool things going on in Newport. Take a look at this. As my guest rolls in on cue. Excellent. I know this is going to be a great segment. And here's some of the video that we'll see. I guess this is one of the, we were trying to figure out, oh my gosh, there is some great sports trivia that you can, I love old sports stuff. And this Sports Film Festival is that Moses? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and Nadi Comaneci. See, we were trying to, Edwin Moses, Jack Nicklaus. This must be really cool. I have got to park some time to get down to Newport.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
To the show. Meredith is the marketing manager for what is known as NewportFILM, another jewel in Rhode Island that I didn't even know existed. That is my bad. Sorry.
It happens.
What is NewportFILM?
So NewportFILM is a nonprofit. We're a year-round documentary film series. So you might have heard of a film festival. And we decided to do something a little different when we started in 2010. And rather than doing another tourist attraction sort of festival, because there are so many amazing ones already in Newport and in Rhode Island, we decided to sort of spread that out throughout the entire year. So instead of having a full week or 2 weeks of films and events, we spread them all year round. So we have about 30 films and events throughout the year. And then this year, for the very first time, we're super excited, we decided to do a weekend-long sports film festival, and that's what's happening this weekend.
And we will learn all about it when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
So what is this mountain? Beautiful.
They thought that you have to go by the book, which I did, but I did a little, extra, I call it the Comaneci touch.
Everything led up to 7:25 p.m. on that Sunday night. That's when life stopped for me.
It's funny because people say, oh, you're so competitive. And I'm like, what is the alternative? To give up, to not try hard, to just say, I don't care?
All those guys that were my competition disappeared from my mind. It was all about what I could do now.
I mean, you want to talk about some greats. So the Sports Film Festival is unique. How? And because even though is that video all unique to the presentation at the Sports Film Festival, or where does it all generate from?
Yeah, so all of our films that NewportFILM gets, we get them off what's called the festival circuit. So these aren't films that you would be able to find on Netflix or that you'd be able to rent or that would be showing somewhere else in Rhode Island. We go to a bunch of film festivals throughout the year. Sundance Film Festival being one of them, which is where Dark Horse, one of the films we're showing, came from. It actually won the Audience Award this year at the Sundance Film Festival, which is kind of like the award to win. So we get them from a variety of places, but for the most part, we sort of shop around on, you know, what's the newest and best happening in the film industry.
All right, so the Newport Film office is on Bellevue Avenue.
Yes.
And so you guys are operating full-time there. What venue are we using here?
So for the Sports Film Festival this weekend, we're using the Casino Theater, which is on the property of the International Tennis Hall of Fame, which also happens to be on Bellevue. So we're using a few of their different locations there. Other times of the year we use other theaters, and a lot of times we sort of choose venues that maybe aren't normally used for films, like the ballroom of a mansion or the lawn of the art museum, or even we've used Rose Island before and shipped people out. So it really depends, but for this weekend, it is the Casino Theater at the International Tennis Hall of Fame.
So when people go, what do they expect to see?
So at any of our films, including this weekend, we have the film. We also throughout this weekend have cocktail parties, VIP parties, and then for all of our films, we always try to bring in the filmmaker or the subject of the film, or sometimes a panel to do a conversation afterwards. Just because after you leave a movie, a lot of times you have a lot of questions, especially when it's a documentary, and it can be really cool and interesting to be able to actually speak to the person who's made the film, and in some cases, the person who is featured in the film.
Well, we just saw Nadia Comaneci, Edwin
Yes.
Moses, Martina Navratilova, and Jack Nicklaus. Are any of those four coming?
We asked. They're busy, but we do have, for Touch the Wall, Carolyn Joyce, who is a 4-time Olympic silver medalist in swimming. She will be at the film Touch the Wall, of which she's the subject of. And then she'll also be a part of the female Olympian panel that we have later in the day on Saturday.
Tell me about that.
So on Saturday, in the middle of the day, we have a female Olympian panel where Carolyn Joyce, who I just talked about, will be there. Clarissa T-Rex Shields, who is the subject of T-Rex, which is another film we're showing on Saturday. She'll be Skyping in because she's actually training for the Olympics in Rio right now, so she can't be here. And a local Olympian, her name is, what is her name? Sarah Lynn Jewell. Lynn Jewell Shore, and she won the Olympics in sailing in 1988. She won gold, and she is a local to Newport and Rhode Island, and so she'll be there as well. And they'll do a panel just sort of talking about what it's like and answering questions from people, and it'll be a really good interactive experience.
So when you put this in the, how long are the movies, each of them?
Each of them, they're all a little bit different. They usually range from anywhere from an hour and 15 minutes to maybe an hour and 45 minutes. One piece of this weekend that's really unique is a curated selection of short films on various types of sports that the New York Times has curated for us, which is pretty cool. I don't know if you've heard of the New York Times Op Docs. If you haven't, you should check it out. It's a selection of short films that they have on their website, and they range from all kinds of topics, but we asked them specifically if they would do a collection just for us of sports-related shorts, so that's going to be about an hour.
Who came up with this idea?
It wasn't me. Well, actually, it started a few years ago when the International Tennis Hall of Fame, who is one of our partners on a lot of different events, we're neighbors like we just talked about, and we work with them a lot, and they said they were interested in doing a sports film festival, and of course they let us know. And we said, all right, well, whenever you're sort of ready to do that, we would love to help be a part of it, help produce the actual event, help pick the films and get the talent here and stuff like that. So then we decided maybe in the fall that the spring sounded like a good time, and so we decided to put it together.
Yeah, the sports business is just exploding. I mean, it's just exploding on every media platform. Everywhere you go, there's money being made in sports. There's an audience for sports currently. Nostalgia for sports is a huge thing. ESPN has done, I think, a terrific job with a lot of the E60, whatever, and all that kind of stuff. What do you think makes this particular festival unique for that sports film viewer?
Well, I think we have a lot of elements. So we have, like you were saying, some of the old-timer sports people in the film Winning that we just talked about. Then we have some of these really new up-and-coming people like Carolyn Joyce and Clarissa Shields. We both just happen to have a few very young female athletes featured in some of these films, which is also really awesome because, you know, in the world right now, we're always talking about women's rights and equality and in the business, in the workplace and all of that. So it's really great to be able to really feature some of these super strong kind of hero figures as young females.
Yeah. All right, some more details on the festival and what the film office does year-round. We come back. Stay with us.
Missy Franklin is one of those rare athletes that come along once every generation.
But Missy Franklin coming home shatters the American record.
Carolyn Joyce is a 2-time Olympian and a 4-time silver medalist. She's 25 years old and she just moved out to Colorado.
When I decided to come here, people were like, really? You're gonna swim with high school kids?
Her job is swimming and getting ready for Olympic trials next year.
It's just unbelievable to swim with someone of her caliber every single day.
So just another little bit. So that particular conversation we had last segment, that's going to, that'll be a foundation for a panel conversation.
Absolutely. So Carolyn Joyce, who's the subject of the film Touch the Wall, will be at the screening to do a question and answer afterwards, which will be really exciting. I know there's a lot of really young, up-and-coming swimmers in Rhode Island. I know swimming's huge here, so...
Huge.
Yes, so people are very excited to meet her.
Actually bumped into Mr. and Mrs. Beisel at one of the hot spots in Narragansett last week, and they said that Elizabeth was doing well and that she was in the best shape of her life getting ready for the summer trials this year. I mean, you say swimming, you have to say Beisel. She didn't make the film, though, huh?
She's not in the film.
It's all right. She'll be in somebody's film, there's no doubt, because she is a story and a half and one of the real superheroes in Rhode Island. So the Sports Film Festival this weekend, Jess, can we put this up? Make sure that everyone's got the data. It's pretty simple. What time the doors open? And wait, so you go and see an hour and 15-minute movie, and then there's maybe a conversation. Is there a conversation for every production?
For every film, yes. There's some sort of question afterwards. For the New York Times OpDocs, the coordinating producer of the OpDocs is introducing the film. She might talk to people afterwards as well, but yes, there's conversation after every film.
So the venue is it, how many people can sit in and watch a particular film?
So in the theater we can fit about 300 people,
wow, okay.
Which we often sell out of. So if you're sounding like this is something that's up your alley, then definitely get your tickets soon. So at the casino theaters where we show the films, we're also utilizing other areas of the Tennis Hall of Fame campus, like the USTA wing, which is in their newly renovated museum. I don't know if you've been down there and seen it, but it is really cool. It's a really awesome museum. And so we're having the opening night party in the USTA wing as well as the female Olympian panel.
And you got some skiing emphasis as well. I mean sailing.
Sailing, yes. So Rhode Island is obviously, especially being in Newport, a big sailing.
Heard that.
A little bit. So we're showing a film called The Weekend Sailor. This one people have been buzzing about around us, and it's about the very first Whitbread Round the World race, which is now called the Volvo Ocean Race, which we all know. And so the very first race, there was a Mexican team that entered. They were weekend sailors. They weren't round the world racers by any means, but they thought it seemed interesting. So as a family, pretty much, this guy with his daughter, or his son, and even his wife, and a couple other guys they kind of found at the boat park, put together this boat, did the first Whitbread race, and ended up winning the race.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool, and the director will be there to do a conversation afterwards. We also have some local Volvo Ocean Race sailors and sailing legends like Jerry Kirby will be moderating, and so we'll have a little bit of a panel discussion.
Tickets are available online?
Yes, NewportFILM.com/sports.
All right, if you didn't remember that, go to foxprovidence.com where you will see the information. Good luck with this weekend. Great to meet you. Thanks,
you too.
Appreciate it. Final word and we come back. Stay with us. So it's primary day tomorrow. Listen, check the Secretary of State and/or your town clerk's office because the ballot places are different. Okay? See you tomorrow.